Hello, and welcome to HR Connections. Our channel is dedicated to finding success factors of professionals and business owners. In our series, Global Achievers, we normally speak to those business owners and professionals at the top of their game. However, today's episode will be a little different. We'll be speaking to Julie Rose. She's a full-time digital nomad who's presently living in Mexico. She's been to 22 different countries already and has done all the 50 states in the US. She'll be speaking to us about her journey, the lifestyle in general, and her strategies towards savings. So stick around, we'll be right back. Hello, welcome back. So we have the lovely Julie Rose joining us from Mexico. Julie, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Life is good.
Okay, excellent. Very good to hear. So I guess we'll just start off maybe, with your broadcasting career. I know that when we spoke before, you had said that, your career wasn't linear, similar to others perhaps. So maybe we can just get started and then go from there.
Sure. So I went to school for broadcast television. My plan was to be a journalist. My plan was to be on air or behind the scenes. And I really liked the news. And that was where I sort of saw my career going. Well, a year and a half in, I got laid off. And within a week or two, I had another job. I had an offer to move to Phoenix, from Minneapolis to Phoenix, and do basically the same job for 25% more money. At the time, of course, when I got laid off, I thought my life was over. What do I do now? I'm completely lost. And it took a couple weeks, of course, to get my life back together. And granted, that is definitely not everyone's experience, but just want to help illustrate that life is full of ups and downs and twists and turns. And I'll take you along in my next phase of life. After a total of 6 years in broadcast television, I decided I don't know if it's for me anymore. I kind of want holidays off. I want to work normal hours. But who's going to hire me when my experience is in this field that is very hard to understand by the average person who's not in news? And by the way, movies and television do not portray what is journalism very well, not accurately at all. So I had a ton of trouble trying to get another job. And the assets that I brought to the table, the skills and the experience I brought to the table, video production, live streaming, storytelling, that was completely foreign 10 years ago to many marketing and communications businesses. Luckily, I found a company that would take a chance on me, and look at us now, live streaming, video production, social media, all of these emerging technologies are very, very much in demand. So I struggled for probably a year or so trying to find another job, and I did. And then a couple of years down the line, I was laid off again. I found a really wonderful job, very high stress, but very high profile job in social media. And it really encompassed my life and I really enjoyed it. And then I was laid off a year and a half in. And because I had made that job sort of part of my identity, I felt completely overwhelmed when I lost it. I had no idea what to do with my time, who I was, how I was supposed to move on from there. And let me tell you, the story has a happy ending. And I'll actually stop right there because that is sort of the start of a whole new chapter for me, that layoff.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. So one of the things, I guess, before we move on further, one thing I wanted to basically maybe dive deep into a little more, if I can, was something you just said, is that the reality of journalism is very different from what we watch on TV or movies, right? So perhaps you could shed some light on that. Like, what would you say are some of the major things which is sort of misrepresented through movies and TV, but in reality, it might be totally different?
Well, I think movies and television, they make, the news part of their dramatic storyline. And many of the bank robber breaks into the newscast to make some crazy demand. That doesn't happen. A lot of earlier television, and there has been some better representations in very recent times, but a lot of earlier television did not depict what it actually was like day to day in a newsroom. And by the way, it is not very exciting day to day in a newsroom. There is maybe a handful of days per year that you actually feel like I'm on deadline, and what you're doing is very impactful and powerful and important. Half the time it's, oh, there is a fire out of town, there is an accident there, it's very dry material that we are forced to tell a story about and make it something that people find newsworthy. So it is completely different than it is depicted a lot of the times. And also, it's just a different way of working. Many businesses, many companies, you have several projects, you work on them day in, day out. In news, you go to work every day and do the same thing and close the book at the end of the day. Sure, the stories are different, the events are different. Most of the time, you work, and then when you sign off at the end of the day, tomorrow's a new day. I've done my job. I put the newscast on the air, and now I can start fresh tomorrow. But a lot of people in other industries sort of take their work home with them, or they're sort of working always on, answering emails, things like that, having lots of meetings. And that was just sort of broadcasting was a completely different life. What's been very cool to see the evolution is that a lot of those skills, the ability to work under pressure, under deadline, to close the book on a project in a day, that has sort of become a new skill and a new specialty in other industries. And so it's recognized now, but when I was trying to get out of news around 10 years ago, people couldn't really fathom working that way.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Let's go back 2 years or a little more than that, I guess, once the pandemic hit. So I guess once the pandemic hit, it set in motion a lot of things for yourself. So maybe you can just tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so the pandemic hit 2 years ago, and I had found another job. I was working remotely, I was working from home, and I was doing a lot of business travel. And obviously, business travel was canceled. Personal travel was largely canceled when that happened. And I, didn't really like being at home and being confined. And a lot of people, I think, experienced that when they were on lockdown, like, looking around, this is what I have to work with. So I sort of had an epiphany, and the seed had been planted a couple years prior, that prior layoff, when I took a good amount of time in between jobs. I went to travel. I went to Europe for 4 weeks. And back then the seed had been planted, but I felt like I want to travel. I don't want to be at home. And obviously the pandemic changed some of that, but I started thinking, what's keeping me at home is my house and my things. And that's keeping me rooted to this place, that even though I'm able to travel a little bit or do road trips or do solo travel, I'm still being called back to Phoenix. And decided, sort of out of the blue, I'm going to become a nomad. And I called my boss. I told her, hey, I want to move away from Arizona. She asked me, where are you going to move to? And I said, nowhere yet, or everywhere, however you want to look at it. And I decided right then and there, she agreed. She said it was okay that I was going to sell my house, sell everything in it, and work from anywhere, as my job was fully online, and I really wanted the freedom of traveling. And of course, traveling within the confines of the pandemic, and really just trying to get out in nature, trying to get out of wherever I was renting and see more, because the pandemic, I think, sort of changed my priorities a little, or made me realize and actualize my priorities a little bit earlier than perhaps I would have otherwise.
Okay. All right. So once you made that decision that, you know what, nomadic or the digital nomad lifestyle was calling you, this is what you wanted to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you had to take care of some of the things at home, like selling your house or, dealing with these other matters, right? But I'm going to assume that you had a good amount of savings in order to take on this particular lifestyle. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And again, that was sort of when the seed was planted during my first layoff in 2017. And I went on that 4-week trip to Europe. I knew that, hey, a life with more travel, a freer life is what I eventually want to get to, which means that even if I don't have the resources today, I'm going to make those resources. I'm going to build those resources and create those resources. So I made a lot of decisions back then that I knew, at some point in the future, I would be ready and I would hit those milestones. And eventually I did.
Okay. All right. Which actually brings me to a very interesting point. As we know in North America in general, people are not very keen on savings. A lot of people don't have the proper strategy, just not that financially literate or smart about money, especially when they're younger, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
could you share with us some strategies on how people can streamline their savings approach?
Yes, sure. And I'll preface that by saying I did not start out with money. I did not start out doing everything right. I made a lot of mistakes. And I'm sure a lot of people out there have, because like you mentioned, we have not been taught really financial literacy in the way that we should be, in the way that we can really optimize it. And so, my advice really across the board is live beneath your means, spend less than you make, and make sure your lifestyle doesn't creep on you as you get promoted, as you get new jobs, as your career sort of expands. Because I think that's the trap that a lot of people fall into. And maybe more specifically, don't hold debt. Do your best as fast and as strongly as you can to pay off that debt. And specifically, some of my strategies included starting to contribute the maximum per year to my retirement vehicles in the US. That is a 401k and a Roth IRA. You can contribute around 19,000 to a 401k and around 6,000 to a Roth IRA per year. And maximize all the options available to you. And I know that can be hard for a lot of people because they think, well, gosh, if I take that much money out of my salary, what will I have left? And that means my lifestyle will have to change. Bingo. Your lifestyle has to change now if you have a goal for the future. And really it goes back to, what do you want? What matters to you? What do you prioritize? Is it material things? Is it having a bigger house? Is it having more stuff? Is it having a cooler car? Because people who are making money aren't saving are usually spending it. So if you can cut your spending and defer that, to defer your income to what really matters to you, then you're winning in the end. And honestly, I don't judge people for their choices, but I do want to challenge everyone. Are you actively making a choice to spend that money? Or are you just doing what people do when you have disposable income? So I would just suggest to everyone, as you are thinking about your priorities, and if your priorities include living like a freer, more simpler, more vibrant life, if that resonates with you, then move towards that. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to be easy, and it's going to involve sacrifice. But very simply, spend less than you make and put that in a place that it will work for you in the most tax efficient places. And, there's a lot of good information about there. I'm certainly not out there. I'm certainly not the expert, but if anyone wants some book recommendations, I'm happy to point you in the right direction.
Okay. Excellent. So you've done the 50 states in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're living in Mexico. Tell us about that. How did you sort of decide that, yes, you know what, I'm done with all the 50 states and now I'm going to move to Mexico? How did you make that decision?
Well, I think, I felt like, hey, I hit all 50 states. I've reached that milestone. Now it's time to expand. The world started opening up a little bit more. And it also sort of went down to my bank account. So like I had mentioned, I had spent many years sacrificing, saving, deferring my income for later. And at that point, I had decided, this was December 2021, I decided I'm ready to quit my job. I'm ready to do something for me. I'm ready to pursue my own endeavors and interests and not work for someone else. And I was able to have that choice because I bought my freedom with all my very aggressive saving and investing strategies, and decided, well, this is the amount of money that I have. So where will it go the farthest? And that includes Mexico, if we're in North America. So I decided to take my savings and my dog and my car and drive down to Mexico. And I've been here now a little over 4 months, just traveling really all around Mexico, discovering the different places and cities and states, and trying to determine where would I like to spend more time in, and where really feels best for me. And I can just say, as a country, I love it. I'm having a great time, and definitely see myself staying in Mexico more permanently.
Okay.
Semi-permanently. I never commit fully, but semi-permanently.
Well, I guess that also is one of the advantages of the lifestyle. Like, you can virtually work from anywhere, so where to next, right? So, we've gone through, like, you also share this very openly on your blog as well, is about your expenses. So I think we kind of averaged it out, and it comes down to about $70 a day that you're spending on everything, right? So where do you spend your money?
The biggest chunk of money, the biggest chunk of my budget is accommodations. And I mean, obviously, need a place to lay my head, need a place to hold my things, to shower, to eat, all of that. And obviously, you save more money the longer you stay in a place. Then you get sort of long-term discounts. But as a whole, Mexico, I would say, as far as accommodations go, and it varies obviously by city, but I was nomadic in the US for over a year. I was probably spending twice as much per night than I am spending in Mexico on accommodations. So if you think about that $75 a day, I'm not 100% sure of the percentage, but let's just say 25% of that is my accommodations, maybe 30% is my accommodations. Then I have food, then I have transportation costs. Food includes restaurants, groceries, alcohol, transportation includes gas, Ubers, tolls, which are abundant in Mexico, and insurance, of course. And then there's other categories like personal care, some shopping, some healthcare. I have to pay for my own healthcare now because I am, self-employed, and a lot of other smaller categories. But I lay all that information out on my website if anyone's interested.
Right. And your website will be included in the description below. So if anyone wants to check it out, obviously they can. In terms of work, what kind of work are you doing right now?
So I'm a blogger. I have a blog really all about my nomadic journey, starting basically 4 years ago when I went to Europe for 4 weeks, and everywhere I've sort of been along the way, and a lot of the personal revelations as I travel, as I date, as I secure financial independence. So lots of personal stories and anecdotes about my journey. I'm also writing a memoir, and I have started just recently coaching and mentoring. And that's really out of need because I was receiving a lot of private messages on my blog, had a lot of good reception, and a lot of people just wanting more information about my lifestyle and how they can make it work for them, and some sort of personalized support. And so I just started a coaching business. So if any of your listeners are interested, please reach out to me. My email address is mentor@juliebrose.com.
Right. Excellent. I think, a lot of people I've spoken to, they would like to pursue a similar lifestyle if they could, right? Especially, us living in Canada, the winters are, depending on who you ask, can be sort of uncomfortable, and they would like to go away somewhere warm and things like that, right? So these are questions I think that just getting your honest response and your firsthand account of those things would be very beneficial to anyone who's thinking about it. So I think the first thing I would want to know is that in terms of blogging your blog, right? How did you go about marketing the blog?
Well, it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. At first it was just, this is kind of for fun. I didn't really advertise it with money or anything like that, but I was posting regularly. Obviously, friends and family were following, and people started finding me because of the things I was posting, because they were interested in my take. And I just had to be consistent and post on the blog, on social media, on YouTube. I think it's sort of a mix of several different things. One, you post what you want to share, what you care about, what you want people to know about it. Two, you post what people want to know about, people want to hear, what they've been asking you about. And three, you post in a way that the channels appreciate it, that will serve the channels, the kind of format or the kind of information that they like to boost in their algorithm. And when you kind of pull and flex those levers over time, you figure out what this, sweet spot is for your message, your brand, your audience, then it can be a snowball effect.
Okay. Very good information indeed. The next thing I think a lot of people would want to know are, some of these challenges, which I'm sure you have faced moving to a different country. Obviously, there's the cultural aspect to it, but beyond that, practically on a day-to-day basis, what are some of these challenges that you had to face initially?
Well, first, I like to think of travel. A lot of people go into it and they're just overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, it's so different. I can't handle it. How will I ever survive? And I think the important thing is to remember it's a foreign country, but it's not a foreign planet, which means hey, we're all humans. The basic humanity exists everywhere. There's always the things that we need to do. It's just a little different way of doing things. So the challenge for me was just discovering, sort of through trial and error, through conversations with others, or through research, what are the different ways of doing things. And the other sort of important part of that was I had to be curious. I had to go out and I had to sort of figure things out to a certain degree. How do I, shop? Really, it sounds easy, right? How do I shop? But shopping is different. It's a little different. A lot of things are similar, but a lot of things are different. And you just sort of have to figure out what that is. And each little thing you figure out, you get more and more and more confident for the bigger things that you have to tackle. And I'm well on my way. I feel very confident to take on, most challenges here in Mexico.
Okay, perfect. If someone doesn't speak the local language, how do you get around that?
Yeah. So, I mean, first, I would just recommend try to learn a little bit, try to learn numbers, try to learn, greetings, things like that. Otherwise, you will be very, very lost.
Uh-huh.
But first of all, the Mexican people, they are helpful. I know that's not the case in every country, but if you try to be understood and if you try to understand, they work with you. I mean, they're a very patient they're very patient people. So obviously that tendency is very helpful. I think obviously gestures, symbols, all of that body language goes a long way. And then lastly, maybe second to lastly, Google Translate app on your phone. Technology is amazing. You can basically say whatever you want into the phone in English or whatever language and out pops Spanish, or recruit someone to help you. Ask for help. There are tons of English speakers in Mexico. So bilingual speakers. So if you're ever very, very stuck or in a pickle, it has never been hard for me to find someone to help me.
Okay. Okay. Very good. How about some of these basic things like renting an apartment or getting a phone or, as you said, basic day-to-day shopping, even setting up a bank account, right? Are these really difficult things to do, or are they as easy as we do it here?
Well, I don't think they're as easy. That's part of the learning curve. That's part of the figuring out the different ways of doing things. Um, I think it just goes back to soliciting help and doing some research and hearing from other people's experiences. For as far as it goes for me, I retain a U.S. address, I retain a U.S. bank account, I retain a U.S. cell phone provider that all work in Mexico. So it's not, it wasn't like you're Mexican, you're in Mexico now, everything changes. There's a lot that you can keep from back home. And really it's kind of just the day-to-day things that I'm dealing with. And obviously that changes over time, but it's not a full transition.
Okay. All right. Um, I think that one of the things obviously we haven't discussed yet are some of the great joys or pleasures of this particular lifestyle. For yourself, what are those?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's the amazing experiences I get to have when taken out, I'm out of that bubble that I was in and that routine of go to work and go to the gym and go home and eat and watch Netflix. I'm out of that routine. So I'm horseback riding. I'm taking an authentic Mexican cooking class. I'm watching football games and going to a lucha libre show and doing amazing, incredible, and having these incredible experiences. And those are really cool, special events, but the day-to-day of experiencing a new culture, of like meeting new people, of challenging myself and rising above and being able to take on something new, and the way that I feel accomplishment in all of those things, that's it feels really good. It feels really good because I'm curious, I'm learning, I'm growing all the time. I am not living this complacent life and doing the same things over and over again. So it feels really good, and it feels really amazing to have this opportunity.
Okay, that's fantastic. As we're winding down, I guess one of the last things I would want to know from you is, who would you say this lifestyle is suited for? Because obviously, as you've touched on this very briefly as well, is that this is not for everyone. So, who would you say this lifestyle is ideal for?
Yeah, and I know it looks glamorous and it sounds glamorous, but the nomad life is not for the faint of heart. And I have conversations with people that they're like, well, I thought it would be like this, and I like it like this. I'm like, well, sorry, this is really how it is, and you have to be well suited for it. So, one, obviously, can you afford it? Do you have you prepared financially for it? That's sort of the basic fundamental. Another aspect, do you like being alone? I I'm a solo nomad. I don't have a partner. I'm with my dog. And a lot of people, they have to be around family, they have to be around friends, they have safety in numbers. And I like being alone. I like being by myself, but I also like talking with others and being able to reach out and meet lots of different people. So I'm comfortable being alone and taking on these challenges without relying on anyone else for help, even though there are people to help if I need it. And a third question I would ask while you're considering this is, how often do you like to change environments? Are you comfortable with with change, or do you need routine? A lot of people crave their routines. They have their things they like to do, and if they fall out of their routine, I don't feel good. But if you're comfortable with sort of like an ever evolving situation, then I think the nomad life could be for you. And my fourth question is, how do you feel about volatility and not knowing what's coming? Because you're going to encounter things are going to go wrong. Things are going to go, not according to plan. You're going to change your mind a lot too about what you want to do and where you want to go. And sometimes some people just don't like surprises. They like to have their year planned out. And I can say, I don't know where I'm going to be in 2 months. I have no idea. And I'm comfortable with that. I'm okay if my life's a little volatile and it's a mystery. Don't ask me where I'm going to be in 1 year. I have absolutely no idea. So if all those, if you can afford it, if you are comfortable being alone and taking on things alone, if you appreciate a changing environment, and if you can be comfortable with volatility, then yes, I think absolutely the nomad life is for you. And by the way, even if it doesn't feel totally for you with all the things I just mentioned, you don't have to go like 60 miles an hour. You could go like 20 miles an hour. You could take a little like 1 month experiment. You don't have to dive all the way in. And that's how I got here. Is I had a lot of little experiments in the last 4 or 5 years. And I have become confident and courageous enough to take the ultimate leap, which is what I'm doing now.
Fantastic. You have shared a lot of valuable insight for anyone who might be interested in pursuing this kind of a lifestyle, or even a lot of people who are just curious about it and just thinking about it. And I think I'll touch on the very last thing you said, is that you don't have to go 100 miles an hour. You can go 40, 60, whatever, gradually sort of graduate to a level where you're more comfortable with volatility or uncertainty and all that kind of stuff. So, again, excellent insights. Thank you so much for joining us today, Julie. We really appreciate that. All her contact information will be in the description below. And Julie, any last words?
There's one thing I like to say, so I'll make it my final statement, is really, you can make more money, but you can't make more time. And that means really maximize your time.
Wow.
Because we only have so much of it. It's not a renewable resource. And as you guys sort of absorb all of the information I've given you, of course, feel free to connect with me. Happy to help you along this journey.
Wow, awesome. What a powerful note to end on. That's it's really a lot of value here for anyone who watches. Again, Julie, thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you all the best in your future.
Thank you so much. Adios, everyone. This was great.
Thanks for watching. We really appreciate that. If you liked what you saw, then hit the like button. If there's a type of professional that you want to see on a future episode, then let us know in the comment box below. We'll be posting at least once or twice every week, and we'll try our best to bring that guest on our show. And finally, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one.